Guys, how we doing?
Hello.
Questions?
Nope.
With at least some level of concern about UCLA's starting quarterback, obviously, I'm sure you saw he didn't practice to start the week. How are you guys handling that and preparing for the weekend?
What do you mean some level of concern?
He didn't practice to start the week, so are you practicing for two quarterbacks this week, or are you preparing as if he's going to be ready to go?
Yeah, we're controlling the things that we can control. From what I have seen and heard, they're planning on playing him if he's available to play. All we can do is prepare off of what we've seen on tape. We haven't seen the other kid. We went back and watched his high school tape, but there's not a whole lot we can do but just prepare for what we see on film. And then obviously this guy supposedly is more of an athlete, so we get that, but we can't chase ghosts. We gotta prepare for what we have seen.
James, from the questions we have to ask, we didn't see Nick at practice today. Is there anything that is going on there that might impact his availability?
No, not at this stage.
Is there anything further you can tell us?
No. Which I think for 11 years I haven't told you guys anything.
You understand we have to.
I get it. I'd love to talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
Why you have to ask if I'm not going to answer? You're wasting a question in my mind, but that's your job. I don't understand it. I'd like to understand it better sometime.
James, continuing with the running backs, what have you seen from Quentin Martin since the preseason? We saw him get in at Penn State. How's he been so far?
Yeah, Quentin and Corey are doing really well. Both talented guys. They're different than Nick and Katron. Maybe at some point they'll get to that size. I mean, Nick and Katron are both big, strong, powerful backs. They're not that at this stage, but they're still freshmen. But they do a really good job of making you miss. They're both really good receivers out of the backfield. So, they've done some really good things, and they've learned to pick things up so far well. So I think both of those guys, specifically Quentin, is preparing, ready to play. But we'll just see how this thing plays out. I mean, the challenge is, Cam was our number 3, right? So what you don't want to do is you got two guys that could possibly redshirt. If you're going to use one of those guys as your number 3, you want to make sure that they get enough reps, that it makes it worthwhile. And as you guys know, we want to make sure that both Katron and Nick get enough touches. And there's just not enough touches to go around if you're going to make sure that those two guys get enough, let alone all the other guys on the team. That's one of the questions that you guys thankfully haven't really given me a whole lot this year, is why are these guys not touching the ball enough? They are. We start getting more touches for other guys, then that's going to impact our running backs too. So it's a balance of all this all the time.
James, this week we had conversations with Nick yesterday and then today with Drew. They both mentioned that they're having more fun this year. Obviously, the wins help with that, but are you picking that up from the offensive side of the ball, that guys are maybe, there's a little more joy involved with the day-to-day process this season?
Well, a couple of things I would say. I'd say, first of all, I think, to be honest with you, it probably shouldn't be this way, but they're getting a lot more external praise, which I wish didn't affect them. I'd like them to tune all that stuff out, but it has an effect. That's the reality of it. But I also think Andy has just got a fun personality. And I also think Andy is relationship-based leader, which is something that we believe in here. And he's done a really good job of that and explaining the why. So the combination of him having a fun personality and making it fun and developing relationships with the guys, coupled with the fact that we're having success, specifically in the explosive play category, that's probably the biggest part. I mean, just like you guys love big plays and the fan loves big plays, the guys love big plays too. I mean, you rush for 100 yards and you do it 8 yards at a time, or you get one 80-yard run. Everybody loves the 80-yard run.
James, you mentioned that fun personality. How do you see that play out during the week? Like, what exactly is he doing that that puts those guys in those kind of moods?
Yeah, I just think, there's a time to work and there's a time to have fun. And I think the one of the most important traits that we can all learn is how can you have fun while doing hard stuff? And you're going to do hard stuff the rest of your life, so you might as well find a way to enjoy it while you're doing it. And I think Andy does a good job of that with the staff as well as with the players. As you guys know, we're in here a lot of hours. So what you don't want is you don't want those hours to be like grueling hours mentally, emotionally, and physically. They're already physically and mentally challenging. They don't need to be emotionally as well. But there's always that fine line, right? If you're messing around and laughing and playful too much, then that's not what you need either. So that comes with time and experience, and that's kind of where the art and the science, the balance of those things.
James, we saw Cooper Cousins play a decent amount against Illinois, and I think both left and right guard against a pretty tough defensive line. How would you evaluate his performance?
Cooper?
Yeah.
Cooper's been doing great, really, since he stepped on campus. There's been a lot of talk about Cooper and a buzz. He's done it in practice. He's done it against our defense. He's done it in games. It's kind of unusual for a true freshman, but he's pretty far along, and I'd like to get him more work. But so far so good, and hopefully that will continue to grow as the season goes on. But we've been very, very pleased with him really since he stepped on campus.
James, we're seeing the defense take another step. Obviously, the lack of yards, especially in that second half, given up the sacks, tackles for loss, things of that nature. What are you seeing that's maybe a little bit different or improved, and how do you build on that with UCLA?
Yeah, I think it's really just. I think everybody has kind of been settled into their roles, and I also think we've gotten more settled with the technology. I think the technology the first couple weeks was challenging in terms of figuring out the best way for Penn State to use it. And we just got to a point where now the technology has been a positive, it's been a benefit, and it's not cumbersome, which I would say was probably that the first couple weeks. And I think that's as much as anything. The players feel that from the coaches. The coaches are comfortable and confident. The players are comfortable and confident. And I think that we're back to calling the defense the way I think Tom would like to call it, which, hold your calls until you have as much information as possible, whether that's personnel or whether that's formation or whatever it may be. And obviously, depending on a huddle team or a tempo team, if a tempo team's at the line of scrimmage, you can a lot of times see the formation. If you're a huddle team, it's harder to do that. So all these different things based on who we're playing and how they operate kind of impacts how we call defense. But I just think we're kind of getting back into the rhythm of it. And you also got to remember, Tom hadn't done it, for a number of years. Although it was his defense at Indiana, he hadn't done it for a couple of years in terms of the actual living the job every day. So I think that plays a part in it as well.
James, you talked about not chasing ghosts on offense. Defensively, it seems like UCLA does a lot of things, a lot of fronts.
Offense and defense.
Yeah. How do you dial in on what to prepare for and how to attack something that can be so diverse if you choose it to be?
Yeah, I think it's getting to a point as coaches and players to understand you're not going to cover it all. But we've done enough throughout training camp and throughout this season that if they do this motion or they line up in this formation or whatever it is, we have rules that account for those things. And okay, we didn't cover this week. There's a chance something's going to show up in this game that we haven't covered. You can't cover it all. It's just impossible to do. So just follow your rules. So, that's on offense, that's on defense, that's on special teams as well. And you'd prefer to be able to handle it when it happens, but then again, you still have the opportunity to get on the iPad and make some corrections throughout the game too.
Two more, guys.
Hey, Coach, how do you look at this moment to welcome in UCLA as the first former Pac-12 team to join the Big Ten into Beaver Stadium? How do you look at this moment?
Just like cookies and rainbows and puppies and send them gift baskets and we don't think about that at all. This is the team we're playing this week. We need to be prepared to beat them. Like, we're not welcoming anybody to the Big Ten. We got a team on our schedule and our opponent that we got to play this week, and that's what we're doing. All that welcoming stuff happened when the Big Ten had the thing in California where we all had to fly all the way out there to welcome them all. That's when it happened. What was that club called? It's really nice. You guys remember where it was?
No.
They didn't invite us.
We didn't get invited.
The only thing that was scary is the road on the way there was like a mess. I mean, I'm talking about a total mess. And then there's signs saying like the ground's moving. Like, I didn't love that. But besides that, the welcoming stuff happened this summer, and now it's an opponent on our schedule, no different than any other opponent we played this year.
James, you've talked about the challenges of modern college football, keeping a roster intact, re-recruiting your players. So to get to year 3 with Katron and Nick being productive together, being a tandem like this, would you qualify that as unique in modern college football? And even if it's not, how have you witnessed these guys kind of work through some of that modern college football challenges together and remain in place as a tandem?
Yeah, I don't think so, because again, like literally from the beginning, as you guys know, we have recruited a number of classes where we've signed 2 running backs and 2 tight ends, and specifically at that position, we're selling it on, you don't want to be the back that in your college experience you carried it 800 times and people are concerned about how much wear and tear you have on you and what do you have left. I think sometimes it creates a management during games where they want more touches, but I think in the big picture, out of the emotion of a game, I think both of them would sign up for it again, and obviously we would. But it's something that I believe in, that Jaywan believes in, that I think our running backs believe in. We're going to keep those guys as fresh and as healthy as we possibly can. And that's not a concern when people draft our guys, that they're concerned about how much tread's left on the tire. So I think there's just total buy-in to that. And we talk about that during the recruiting process. And I think there's times maybe as freshmen where either they don't understand it or sometimes the parents don't understand it. But I think after some time and some seasoning and I think when they all look back on it, they'll all see the value in it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.